Hey, welcome to the first episode of Cooking Under Quarantine. What do you do when you got a family, big family, and they need to eat, and you want to make a meal that is cost effective and tastes good, and you're locked up together? So today's meal is going to be baby back ribs. One of the things we're going to use is called an Instapot. If you guys don't know what this is, it's basically an electric pressure cooker. I bought this probably about 2-3 months ago and found a ton of recipes, and it makes everything basically instant. We're going to put the ribs in here, and we're going to sort of pressure cook them, and then we'll finish them off in the broiler. I'll show you how I make my homemade barbecue sauce to glaze them, get that nice sticky, icky flavor on them. In the Instapot itself, we only need a few ingredients. We're going to need a little bit of this is a badilla fajita, and then some just basic chili powder, smoked chili powder. You'll need a medium-sized onion and a few cloves of garlic. The actual ribs themselves, and then a little bit of apple juice, and that's what's going to go into here as we turn it on. And these ribs probably take about 20-25 minutes to cook, not long at all, and they're ready. And it's crazy how fast this cooks. And the Instapot infuses the apple flavor into the meat. It's when I take them out, you could actually eat these just by themselves without any sauce on them. But I love those sticky, gooey ribs that stick to your fingers, and everyone's like, "Do you got any more?" So that's what we're making today. The whole meal should only take about half an hour to make. So stick with me as I go through the steps on how to get it done, and we get started making the first episode of Cooking Under Quarantine. That didn't work. Great. So step 2, or should be step 1, I guess, is to get the ribs open and then get these ribs out of the bag. What we're trying to do is get all the blood off we can. So we get that bag out of here. We just want to rinse them off on cool water. You don't want to use warm water or hot water. And you want to get all that blood off. Now, some people will cut this sort of membrane off. I don't, but you can. When these come out of the Instapot, they fall off the bone already. So that membrane is sort of some of the sticking stuff that makes them stay together. And I laid this down on a paper towel. And I don't want to waste paper towels in this environment, but at the same point, I have to get these ribs patted dry. They have to be sort of dry as I can get them. No blood and anything. So we're just going to fold that and really just get as much of that dampness off of them. Same way you would do if you were going to do sort of a chicken before you put it in any kind of a thing. And then just to make sure they're dry, I'll lay this over a cookie sheet, which I have a little bit of a cookie dryer on it. So I'll let these sit for a few minutes. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spray it with a little olive oil and then put some seasoning on, which is basically the, and you can buy this, it's usually in the Spanish aisle. It's called badilla fajita. I like that seasoning. It adds a lot of flavor to it. And then just a little bit of the chili powder, which is basically just a basic, nothing fancy on the chili powder. So I'll let these dry first, give it a couple minutes, let them really make sure they're dry. I'll put the camera back on as we go to spray them, and then basically after we spray them and put the seasoning on, we let it sit for 15, maybe 30 minutes, just to let that seasoning sit in before you dip it into the Instapot. Okay, so it's been about 15 minutes. The ribs are dry, so I'm gonna take a little canola oil spray, and I love to cook with this, whether it's warming up the grill or anything. I think the canola oil just has a higher burn rate. I just want to spray it. There's no right or wrong way to do that, as long as you just coat it. And basically what we're going to do is just take a little bit of this fajita seasoning and just get it on there. Nice and evenly. A little bit of the chili powder. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. This is just a dry rub. We're just trying to infuse some of that into this. We can kind of just pat it in. You could add onion powder, garlic powder, salt and pepper as well to this. I may do that as well, but right now this is what I'm doing. Sometimes I make my own dry rub, which will be another video for another time, which involves about 12 different spices. It's really good on chicken wings if you just want to stick them in the oven for the game. And what I'm trying to do is to get as evenly coated as I can before this runs out, which only have a little bit left. That's it for that. And just get a little chili powder on this. And a little jiggle in there, I know. A little jiggle. And basically all the kids like eating the ribs. They come out nice. It's an easy meal to make. You know, before Instant Pot, ribs are so challenging for me because you try to get them in the oven and cook them and they just dry out by the time they're done. This way we sort of almost parboil them before they're ready, and it takes about 25 minutes. And then we just let the machine do the work for it. So that's the ribs. So we'll let that sit for half an hour. I could put that back in the refrigerator if I wanted to. And then basically what you're gonna have is we have the setup here for the Instant Pot. So I'm gonna put maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna get the bottle open. Not spilling it. That's a full liter bottle, 64 ounce. This is a 64 fluid ounce. I'm gonna put enough in there to really, about an inch in that pot. So that's what's left, up to the label. So whatever that measurement is. And then basically put a little bit of onion and garlic in there. Now there's really no wrong or right way to cut these up. You can make them small or big. I just leave them chunky because we're not using this afterwards. Some people will take the onion and garlic and the apple juice water after you're done with the ribs, and they'll put the red bliss potatoes in there and use that same water, the rib sauce and the apple juice to make the mashed potatoes out, which is a good idea. I haven't done that, but I've seen it, and obviously it makes sense to me. And I'm just really smushing this garlic. I just want to smush it so I can release the oils. So when it goes into the Instant Pot, it's going to, again, I could chop some even finer, but you don't have to. All we're trying to do is get the basic flavor out of it for the ribs. So next up is, about half hour when I come back, when I stick these in the ribs, I'll turn it on. Then it's just a waiting game. Hey, we're back, and now we're going to be putting in the actual ribs into the Instant Pot. So as you guys can see, the apple juice, the layer, what I have in there, and I did throw in a couple bay leaves. I didn't say that in the video. I put that in, it was an afterthought afterwards. I threw a couple bay leaves in there. So here's what you want to do. It's been a half an hour. This is sort of set in, and what we're going to do is take this and just put it in the circle inside there. And you might get some stuff on the edges, which is fine. And basically, that's it. That's how simple that is in terms of putting that in there. And all we're going to do from there is put the lid on, and we're going to seal it. That's sealed now, and you can have this on venting, or you can have it on seal. I think it's called sealed. And then all you want to do, my Instant Pot basically has a couple different settings on here, but we're just going to go to pressure cook, and it's set for 25 already, and that's all you do. You just leave it alone. It's set for 25. It's going to start, and what it does first is it won't start right now. It's on, so what it's going to do is it's going to warm up. So if you had it on vent, it would just let the steam out. So you want to seal it. It'll heat up there, and once it gets to a certain point where it's at that pressure cook level, then it'll start counting. It'll start going 25 and work its way down. Then after it's done, you can self-vent it, which is basically just turn this way and the steam will come out. Or you can let it soft vent, which is basically let it count back down inside there and vent slowly. I may do about 10 minutes of that. As of right now, I have it set for just take 25 and I'm taking it out. But I may let it go an extra 10 minutes after it's done just to kind of set up in there nice and vent slowly instead of just popping it right out. Give it time to cool down a little bit before I grab it with my hands, because sometimes it's just so like fall off the bone that it just crumbles. So what we'll do is let it soft vent for 10 minutes, and then we're going to let it go on the rack and dry before we put it into the broiler. And the next step for us is to make the sauce. So I'll give you guys an idea of what I use for my barbecue sauce. Okay, so this is it, guys. This is the moment of truth. Having the ribs in there is one thing in making them, but the right sauce can make or break your ribs. I've had a lot of friends ask me for my recipe of my rib sauce. I've never given it out. This is the first time I'm giving it out. So I start with any barbecue sauce. You get any one you want as a base. This is 99 cents at Shaw's. Whatever one's on sale is the one I get. Hickory or barbecue, any kind of barbecue flavoring you want, you get. So that's the base. That starts the base for our sauce. We do add honey, which gives it one of the factors that gives it, and it's a healthy squeeze in there. If I was to measure it, I'd say probably 2 teaspoons. We are going to use black molasses, basic grandma one. This really adds a nice stickiness to it too. Sort of an unusual. A lot of people don't think you use molasses, but in barbecue sauce it just works. This is the end of the jar. Yeah. I do use jelly. Now jelly is a weird factor. I just learned this about 2 years ago, but it's something in it that helps it, makes it more sticky than any other things I put in here. So just use 2 spoonfuls of jelly, a little bit of brown sugar, which we're going to cut open right now. Uh-oh. That. And as far as how much you put in, I mean, it's all by eye, but I would say 2 or 3 spoonfuls. I'm just going to pull it down because typically I buy by the bag, the big bag, but because this COVID-19 stuff, it wasn't any at the store. I do add vinegar. Vinegar is what's going to give you that tang. And I put maybe a half cup in there, towards a cup. As far as spices goes, you use the basic stuff. So we got a little bit of onion powder, a little bit of garlic powder, some chili powder, same thing we put on the ribs. This comes out really slow. Paprika, that smoky taste, just a little bit. Dry mustard, gives it a nice flavor as well. I'll get some shakes in there. And then here's your heat, the cayenne pepper. You gotta be very careful with this. This is, 1 or 2 shakes, that's about it. Ideally, you would also put in some whiskey into the sauce. And I would use cheap whiskey. I don't use like JD or anything. I use like Seagram 7s. Just whatever I have in there. I didn't go into the liquor cabinet and look what we have. But I'm going to stir this up until it all melts. As of right now, when you look at it, if you can see this here, it is watery as hell. But what I'm going to do is get this down to it starts to thicken up, and this watery turns into more like a thickness. That's what I'm going to be looking for, the consistency of a thick sauce before I apply it. Because I don't want this to run. I want this to stick and glaze, and I want all this stuff to kind of heat up and move together. So that's the secret sauce in terms of the barbecue sauce. I'm going to let that heat up and boil. You have to be careful, too, if you have it on the stove, because on this stove or any stove, it has a tendency to bubble up. If you get the heat going first, it has a tendency to bubble up and bubble over. So once it hits that boiling point, you got to really watch it, turn the flame down, and let it simmer as slowly as you can for about 5-10 minutes, and just till it thickens up. Just to get a nice thickness to it. That way you can glaze the ribs as they come out. So I'll show you guys when the sauce is done what the thickness looks like. So you can take a look here at the consistency of the sauce. It's really bubbling up now and getting thicker. When it bubbles, the idea is to think of it to look like kind of like thick molasses. It's not going to be as thick as molasses, but it'll be thicker than that. So it's going to bubble down and condense just a little bit. And over here, I just took the ribs out. You guys can get an idea what the ribs look like when they come out. You can see how the meat's pulled back from the bone. I could peel that out. It'll just pull right off at this moment. But I'll let them cool a little bit until the sauce is done. Then we're going to glaze them, and then we stick them in the broiler. And I'll give you an idea how that takes time. When we put it in a broil, it's only like 5 or 10 minutes and they're done. It doesn't take long at all. We just kind of keep basting it, watch it bubble up, keep basting it to get that nice, thick, sticky, gooey, bone-sucking sauce that's going to come on that this is going to turn into. Okay, so we're at the point where we're going to glaze the ribs now. So I put them upside down at first. We're getting a nice glaze on the bottom. We only glaze the bottom once. You're not going to keep flipping it over. I mean, I guess you could flip it over multiple times, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to glaze the bottom once. And be generous with this. We only made this barbecue sauce for this one task, this one rib. So there's plenty of it to go around. So definitely coat all the bones, any little crevices you see in there. Really get it in there good. And just a tip, whenever, I have the cookie dryer, little netting here to kind of keep it from touching the pan directly. If you don't have that, you don't need that, but it allows a little air to get in there and cook the ribs from the bottom. They don't sit in their own sauce. But if you do that, whether you do that or not, make sure you put tinfoil down in the pan, because this sauce is really sticky, and that sugar will caramelize and it'll be hard to clean up later on. So we're going to go ahead and be extra generous with this sauce. Really slather it on there. I got the oven already set up for broil. My oven has a couple different settings, high broil, low broil, and crisp. Crisp is the lowest of all of them. That's the one I leave it on. I think the super high is way too strong for this. It cooks it too fast and it'll burn it. So I want to do it this way and just really take my time with it. And I want to get as many coats on as I can before it gets burnt. This will burn if you leave it in too long. It'll caramelize and just burn. And it won't have the flavor you want. So you really want to be generous with this. Get it everywhere you can get it. And glaze this. We're going to glaze this probably about 3 or 4 times, as much as I can before it actually gets burnt. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it so you can see me pop it. Just pop it in the oven. And I keep the light on in there, and I'll check that every couple minutes just to watch how it's going. For the first round, it's probably going to sit in there for about 5 minutes. Then after that, it's going to get really hot in there, and the ribs are going to get hot. We're going to check it every 2 minutes and keep basting it, and basting it. So we are at the final stages. I just pulled this out. I gave it 3 glazes. It's still a little bubbling, but this is done. This is glazed. Now, typically, I would wait about 5 or 10 minutes for this to cool off before I cut into it, just to give it a little more pliability. But for the purpose of what we're filming, we can do it. Just to give you guys an idea of what that rib looks like. Now that is perfectly glazed. A little burnt on the backside. I like it a little crispy. It's not burnt like you taste the flavor, but it burns the flavor into the meat a little bit. But you can just see how juicy that is, how that came out. Tender. That's fall off the bone. That'll just fall right off the bone. And the kids going nuts for this. This sauce is super sticky. So before I give it to them, I definitely have to wait for it to cool off. But that wraps it up for today's episode of Cooking Under Quarantine with Deric. Hope you guys enjoy the ribs. I can't believe I gave you the sauce recipe. I've never given that to anybody in my entire life. So enjoy the sauce. And we'll see you at the next episode.